when we crave for man's acceptance, it becomes an issue when one person doesn't accept us. When you crave for man's respect, and then there is that one person who doesn't respect you, it becomes an issue. If you have to be told by someone that you are beautiful, for you to know that you are beautiful, there is a problem. There's always a problem when we are looking for people to recognize us and to accept us, for us to feel important or worthy. And this is what is happening in Haman's life. His pride does not allow him to let this one pass. And so he thinks about it and he says, instead of dealing with just one person, this Mordecai, because he's the one who is disrespecting me, instead of killing him, I'm going to kill all his people. Instead of destroying one person, I'm going to destroy all of them. Is this just because of Mordecai? Or is it because Satan is at work here? And so Haman goes to the king and he tells him, and this is the funniest part, because he goes to the king with a plan in mind, and if you look at verse 8 of chapter 3, his plan is to destroy. He first begins by highlighting the differences. He says, there is a certain people dispersed among the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom who keep themselves separate. Their customs are different from those of all the other people. First, he highlights the difference. We have people that are scattered, they keep themselves different, separate, and their customs are different. They are not like us. So he is bringing divisions first. Then the second thing is he appeals to the king's pride. He says they do not obey the king's law. It is not in the king's best interest to tolerate them. These people don't deserve your leadership. These people don't deserve to be in your kingdom. He's appealing to the king's pride. And then finally, he comes up with a solution. If it pleases the king, let a decree be issued to destroy them, and I will give 1,000 talents of silver to the king's administrators for the royal treasury. If it pleases the king, let us kill them, and I'm going to pay for it. Let's destroy them. And we know King Xerxes has been making decisions without even thinking. He's been making decisions without even getting more information. When he saw Esther, he loved her and took her to be his next queen without even asking where she's coming from, without asking who are her people. We saw him making decisions when Vashti refused to show up and be displayed before a bunch of drunkards. We see him making these prompt decisions without getting more information. Here he makes another decision. He issues a decree that the Jews in the Persian kingdom should all be killed, from the youngest to the oldest. All this time, Esther's identity remains undisclosed. All this time, no one knows except Esther and Mordecai that she is a Jew. This is one of the things that Satan does. He is called the deceiver in Revelation 12. He deceives. He's a liar. John chapter 8 verse 44 says, he's a murderer and a liar from the beginning. When he speaks a lie. That is his language. He's the greatest deceiver. He can deceive you that you don't need God. He deceives young people and old people in turning away from faith, in telling us that there is something much better than following Jesus Christ. He's the greatest deceiver. We are told that in Revelation 12, verse 9. In verse 10, he's called the accuser. He accuses the brethren. In the Garden of Eden, he accused God to men, telling them that God is denying you something that he knows you need. In the book of Job, we see him accusing Job to God, saying the reason Job is worshiping you is because of everything that you've given him. He's the accuser of brethren. In verse 10 and in verse 12, he's called the devil, the destructor, the destroyer. This is always his work. And he's not targeting just the Jews. He's targeting everyone that is a follower of Christ. Everyone. You see, his goal is to see us suffer, to see us turn away from God, to see us fail to rely on God. Can you imagine when the Jews in this Persian kingdom hear the news? Because now the decree was signed and these letters were sent to every house in the kingdom. So they are receiving this message and they are reading and they are saying, in this month, the month that was appointed for that to happen, the letter says, in this month, all of you are going to be killed. Can you imagine receiving a letter, a mail from the king telling you when you are going to be killed, you and your people? The Jews must have wondered, why is God allowing this to happen? Why is he allowing this to happen to us? What plan does he have for us to go through this? What have we done to deserve this? It's some of the questions that we continue to ask every time we encounter difficulties in our lives. I don't know about you, but I ask these questions. Why is this person going through all this? What is God thinking when he is allowing this to happen? And God's people were asking those questions. Those are questions that we ask every time we are going through difficulty. What is God's plan here? Does God really care? Does he care as he says he does? You know, those are questions that run through our minds when we encounter difficulty. You get an accident or sickness. Excuse me. Or you get an infection or you get a bad report about a loved one. And these are questions that come to your mind. God, what are you trying to do? What's your plan through this? Why are you allowing this? And you know, it is in those moments, or you lose a loved one, it is in those moments that the devil usually wants to come in, bringing some evil thoughts. He exactly wants God's people to begin to see God differently. He wants to make God appear like the bad guy so that he can appear like the good guy. He wants to distract us from following God, from relying on God. Let me give you the characteristics of the devil's voice. Usually, it comes with fear. It brings fear. Because he wants you to be afraid instead of having faith. Brings fear. And then it also brings confusion. Because he knows when you are unstable, it is easier for him to control you. Fear, confusion, and despair. You begin to lose hope. See, if you believe in God, then you know that you cannot stop hoping. You cannot stop it. And the Bible tells us that hope does not disappoint. One way you can recognize the devil's voice is by noticing the fear it brings, the confusion that comes with it, and the despair. Fear, confusion, despair. Which is very opposite of God's voice. God's voice usually gives you peace, quietness, that assures you that despite everything that is going on, God is still in control. That's the only reason you and I will still be going through difficulties, but you can still say, it is well. It is well with my soul. Not because I am well, but because he is in control. Brings peace. And again, it also brings encouragement. He will keep him in perfect peace, whose heart is stayed in him because he trusts in him. Brings you peace, brings you encouragement, it leads you to faith. God's voice leads us to want to believe in him even more. God's people, when they encounter difficulties, instead of running from God, they turn to God even more. Instead of stopping praying, that's when they pray even more. Because God's voice leads them to faith. And it brings hope. God's voice enables us to say that I know I'm going through difficulty. I know that I don't know what tomorrow will bring. But I know that the one who holds my future will be there with me. The one who feeds the sparrow is there with me. God's voice is the one that will make you go back to sleep, not knowing if you're going to wake up, because you know that the one that I believe in does not sleep. It doesn't keep you awake when you know that the one that cares for you, the one that is taking care of you, is awake. The reason I go to bed at night is because I know God is awake. I don't have to be awake. He does not slumber. He does not sleep. He who watches over you does not sleep. And when you realize that, it does not only give you peace, but it also gives you